Good evening, everyone. I am Chris, joined once again with Dale to talk about HBO's The Penguin, which is the latest spin-off sequel continuation of the 2022 Batman film directed by Matt Reeves, which I believe, I should have gone back and checked this, but I'm pretty sure it was our first video on this channel back in 2022, I think. Here we are again in Gotham City.
That probably was, yeah.
We've got Tradable Jax in the comments who says, "Hey, Paisanos." Hey, we're doing good. I was just saying to you, Dale, before we went live, I feel like we should have a plan for this review because this is quite a comprehensive show across 8 episodes. A lot of stuff happens. There are a lot of characters that are, well, pretty much every character is worth talking about in this. And then it's also the ramifications of setting up for the Batman 2. I think this is going to be quite a packed review, this one.
I mean, the thing is, it's setting up for Batman 2, which I'm still unsure whether it will happen.
I think that'll happen. Whether the Batman 3 happens, that's another...
I don't know. I mean, that's probably what will happen, isn't it?
So, the Penguin...
Or it'll go to happen, and then they'll be filming it, and they'll be filming it for a week, and then Robert Pattinson will die, and we'll be like, oh, well...
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah,
we'll have to recast.
It just won't happen at all, and they'll be like, you know what? We had bad luck from the beginning. Let's just not do it.
We do have a recast in this particular show with Carmine Falcone or Falcone. I always get used to saying one of them, and then the next adaptation will come out. It's like Ra's al Ghul and Ra's al Ghul. It's like I need to pick a lane and just stick to it. It's changing.
Yeah, I preferred Raish only because Raz just sounds weird. It sounds like RAS. Like, what else are you going to say? Like, Raish actually sounds like a proper pronunciation.
And Ra's al Ghul is, I believe, is how they pronounce it in the animated series, right? Which to me is the best adaptation of Batman that there's ever been.
Don't they say Ra's al Ghul in Batman Begins?
Yes, they do. Yes.
Yeah, and I always thought it was weird. So yeah, Ra's al Ghul.
Well, you know, there's only one pronunciation as far as I'm aware of the Penguin, so I think we'll be fine with this one at least.
Well, unless you pick his last name in this.
Oh God, can we talk about that before we start?
I really didn't. I didn't like that.
I think didn't they do that in the actual Batman film though? That's not like a thing that they've just started with this, is it?
Yeah, they did it in the Batman. It was Edward Norton instead of Edward Digwear. I think it was.
No, Edward Nash. I made that mistake earlier. Edward Norton's
who's Edward Norton?
Actor. He's the film actor.
Oh, he's actually called it right. Okay, see, that's a very easy mistake to make. But yeah, Edward Nash, whatever. Like he you know, it was that was I don't like that. It's like, why are we giving them names of being like, oh, we'll give them a realistic name, but why? Why they need a realistic name? Edward Nick, it could still be a realistic name. It's a name, you know. Like, you could be called Cupboard if you want. Like, if I had a child and I called him Cupboard, that's fine. Like, you could do anything. So why are we fucking about with people's names?
And I think wasn't Edward Nash is a comic book reference. I think it's like a very, very vague alias that the Riddler went under at some point. But
I think it is, but it's just that whole trying to be, oh, but this is trying to be normal, trying to be
realistic.
Like, no, yeah, that's it, realistic, and just being like, but why?
You know, fair enough. Like, when a filmmaker comes on board with a vision for Batman, you know, I've always said it loads. I love seeing different iterations and different interpretations for good or bad. But I feel like Nolan did to death that whole realistic take on Batman, and I was kind of hoping for a little bit more heightened, and it is more heightened than the Nolan verse, I would say. But just a little bit more, you know, don't be ashamed that you're making a comic book adaptation. That's how it feels like a lot of these filmmakers are sometimes. It feels like they're ashamed. It's like, you know, when Man of Steel came out, he's referred to offhanded as Superman once. It's like, we can't call them the comic booky names. It's like, his name's, you know, Edward Nigma. His name's Oswald Cobblepot. Just go for it. But no, it's Oz Cobb. It's Oswald Cobb. Because I believe they said Cobblepot isn't a realistic sounding last name. I was like, but you have an actor called Benedict Cumberbatch.
I always thought Cobblepot was a realistic surname. I thought it sounded quite posh.
Uh-huh.
I don't get that at all.
Which is what the at least, you know, one of the original incarnations of the character is that the Cobblepots were this very, very affluent, very wealthy family, pretty much stood toe to toe with the Waynes as, you know, like one of the most financially superior families in all of Gotham. Very different take on it in this one, but I'm fine with it because I think this works fantastically well for what it's doing in the world that it's building. Let's just wind the clocks back a little bit then. So, I mean, we've already given our thoughts on the Batman. Have you ever gone back? Well, actually, have you gone back and watched it recently in the lead up to this show? Or because I think I've only ever seen it the once, beginning to end.
Yeah, I haven't. I've watched bits. I've watched bits of it, but I've never like watched the whole movie since. No, it's a slow burn. But so is the series. The series isn't something I'd probably return to because again, it's a very every episode is they're not slow and it's well paced. I think the pacing is great in the episodes, but like they're an hour long episode. Obviously there's 8 of them. I wouldn't go back and watch it because there's a lot to pack in. They can be quite slow moving. Then there's a big climax at the end, so that's great. But I think to watch it all in one go is very it's a one time thing.
I might actually disagree with you on that. Now, normally I am like that with TV shows. With TV shows, I'm very one and done for the most part. The story's been told, I've processed it. Oh, I was going to say, could you just like knock the volume down a little bit on yours because I'm hearing the echo a little bit, just a little bit. Perfect. Yeah, because I feel like I've seen the story, it's already been told, and I don't need to invest that kind of time across multiple seasons again to witness the same thing. This one I could go back to. I think with it being a limited series and it's so tightly written, I'm still thinking about the show. I mean, I finished it. I can't remember what day I finished it, but I think it was like the day of the finale. And I was like, dude, you need to get this watched. I want to talk about this show. I need to get everything off my chest. I need to talk about it with you. And I'm still processing. I'm still thinking of the show. Like, honestly, this might be one of the best shows that I've seen in the last 5 years, maybe even more. I would probably compare this to Netflix's Daredevil, at least season 1 of Daredevil, which I thought was one of the most incredible, perfect tellings and adaptations of a comic book character I've ever seen. The writing, the maturity, the violence, it really pulled no punches. And I thought it was a fantastic origin story for a character. And in many ways, although we had the Penguin in the Batman, this is kind of an origin story for the Penguin. By the end of this show, we get the Penguin as we know, with the waistcoat and the coat and the wealthy kind of businessman that we've come to know from the Penguin character. Yeah, he's been around, but he's just been kind of like a mob boss. He's been running the Iceberg Lounge. By the end of this show, he almost does get his superhero costume. Tends to be a trope sometimes. Daredevil was the same, how he doesn't get the comic book accurate costume until like the last episode or so. And it's kind of true with this one a little bit as well.
Yeah, but he always got the like the suspenders and stuff like he would in the Arkham series, that sort of look. He always had that. So to me it was always quite faithful to the way he would look. But the specific right at the end, that last scene where he's got obviously he's got the top hat and everything. Yeah. I was very I was upset to not see him wear the top hat. He was just kind of carrying it and puts it on the thing. And I was like, oh, I would have liked to see him actually walk down. He's got the top hat and a cigar in his mouth. That would have been cool.
That'll be the movie. That'll be the Batman too.
Yeah, I know. But I was like, because he had it in his hand and I was like, oh, he's going to put it on. And then he puts it down. I was like, oh, why did you do that? That was sad.
But like the yellow, there's actually a lot of callbacks to sort of like animated and even Arkham in some respects. I'm going to see if you picked up on the same thing as well. When he's all suited and booted at the very end, he's got the yellow waistcoat on. Very, very similar to the look from the animated series, because that Penguin also had a sort of like a yellow, gold, mustardy colored kind of waistcoat to it. Really reminded me of that. But the winter jacket that he wears with kind of like the furry kind of collar to it, that reminded me of the Arkham games where, like the Cockney crime boss, because I think he wears a coat similar to that as well, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. And that's where when he wears the suspenders and stuff, it was very similar to what he was wearing in that. I think in Night, doesn't he have just a white shirt and suspenders?
Yes, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
In Night though, he looks like some some pub old man, well, not old man, but some 50-year-old pub shaved head, he's been an ex-gangster kind of thing in England. That's what he looks like in Arkham Knight.
The character redesigns for that game were very strange. I guess they thought next gen we've got to completely remodel all the characters, but
I
that was a
don't
very
think
strange choice.
I don't think Penguin was redesigned too much though. I
No,
think
he got
he
off
was,
lightly compared to some of the other ones. Yeah,
yeah, like Riddler was weird. Riddler was very strange. Mr. Freeze again got off quite lightly. Mr. Freeze was cool.
Killer
Killer
Croc.
Croc was
Oh boy.
awful.
Yeah.
That was a bad thing. Scarecrow, I think no, Scarecrow I liked and Scarecrow worked. I didn't have an issue with the original one though. I thought, well, I didn't have an issue with the original of any of them, but like what I mean is Scarecrow's worked, and I don't favor either or, because could the original designer Scarecrow hold up a game on his own?
I think he could. I think he could. I think it's strange when you look
It's
at
just not.
that
It's not
that
as
universe.
menacing.
Yeah, I think it's strange when you look at that universe of games overall, because Asylum into City has such like a cohesive visual style to it,
Yeah,
and then you get to Night and kind of everything's flipped on a dime. It's very strange, some of the choices in that. But I guess you could compare that even to the animated series, because you had the first 3 volumes of the animated series, and then they did the new Batman Adventures, and all of the characters, including the Scarecrow, got a complete overhaul and sort of
yeah,
simplified redesign.
yeah. That was the thing.
So, the Penguin, do you remember when this got announced and sort of what your before this show actually was properly released? Were you hyped for this? Were you curious to see it and that it tied in with the Batman, or did you just think, why are they doing a spin-off show based on
No,
the Penguin?
I always wanted them to do it. I thought from the beginning, we need to see, especially because the Joker had come out as well. Like, something like I want origin stories of villains. I want like a villain sort of thing going on. But the Penguin was one I always wanted to see, because I always said, it could be like a proper Goodfellas,
Sopranos,
crime
kind of,
sort of
yeah.
thing. Yeah, and they've kind of, I feel like no one's ever done it right before. Like, no one's ever done that whole, like, I mean, you got a little bit of it when, they did Gotham, but after series one, it was awful. Like, but like, you got a little bit of that delving into what Penguin was, but he was obviously a lot younger, and that was a lot. Gotham was very sort of like these characters that are based on Batman and characters like that, but, this was like a Penguin origin story. The other, like I say, that was all kind of, it felt not loosely, but loose-ish based on it, not as tightly as this, definitely. So no one's ever done it right, and I wanted to see like a TV series or a movie that was like a crime sort of movie, with Penguin. So I was quite hyped when it was announced. The only time the hype went down is when the Batman kept getting delayed, and I was just like, okay, cool, are these things happening? And then it was happening, and then I was like, is it going to be bad? But it was.
Yeah, I do think. I mean, with the various delays, it's probably down to the writers' strike and all of the strikes they've been having in the last couple of years, which has delayed it. It was meant to be coming out next year. It's now been pushed back to October of 2026. I mean, that's a lot, still fairly a long way away, right?
Yeah.
So far, we've had one movie to show for it, and then we've got this show. Granted, I'm thinking like, can they fast track another show? Not that I want them to rush a show out just for the sake of it, but I feel like we've got to keep the ball rolling with this thing, and it's a shame that they've kind of wasted so many years in between. When this was announced, I mean, I wasn't very excited. I thought this was a very strange choice. That being said, though, Colin Farrell's Penguin was probably my favorite thing from that original film, from the Batman. I thought he was outstanding. Just the makeup and just how he completely disappeared into that character. And the same, can be said for this as well. We'll get onto that later when we talk about performances. But I thought it was a very, very strange choice to just do a show based on the Penguin. And there was a whole slew of other spin-offs that were announced around the same time as well. There was meant to be a show based on the GCPD, and then there was meant to be a series set in Arkham Asylum. And I was kind of curious about that one. I thought, is it just going to be like a villain of the week kind of thing? How we're just introducing loads and loads of villains to set up for the movies, which I thought might be a bit of a strange choice. But even then, you mentioned Gotham just a second ago. What was the whole conceit of that show? It was meant to be a show following James Gordon in the GCPD, but then the main character kind of, in season one at least, kind of turned out to be the Penguin and his rise. So when they announced the spin-off shows for this, it was, we're going to have another GCPD show and we're going to have another Penguin show. I thought, why are we still beholden to this? You know, this world is so big. Let's explore different avenues that they haven't done before. Since then, the GCPD show was basically cancelled, as was the Arkham Asylum one, and HBO just fast-tracked the Penguin with Lauren LaFranc as the creator and the showrunner. And so going in, I wasn't really hyped. I was curious. A lot of reviewers that I see online were really heavily praising the show. We didn't really clock onto it or intend on watching it until we were probably maybe like 4 or 5 episodes in, I want to say, possibly even more. So we came into it fairly late in the game because we were debating whether to do weekly reviews per episode or whether to wait for the whole thing to come out before we did it. But yeah, I had kind of conflicting emotions going into this one, despite the fact that, you know, I didn't mind the Batman. I thought it had its problems, but I did overall enjoy that movie, I think.
Well, to be fair, the biggest thing for me is, like I say, it was the delays and everything. But when I was first like, oh, this would be really cool, when it came out, I wasn't as excited anymore because there'd been so many days with the Batman. There'd been it just, to me, was kind of like, it felt like I'd kind of forgotten about it in a way.
And a new DC cinematic universe being set up completely separate from this as well. I mean, we've got James Gunn's Batman, the Brave and the Bold coming out at some point with you know, Batman and Damian Wayne, which is going to be the main line, the main shared universe of DC. And I think they've kind of thrown all of these other ones off something called Elseworlds. I think they're calling this now the Batman Epic Crime Saga, I think is the name for it.
Don't get why everything needs a shared universe. Like, I mean, they're cool, and Marvel worked because it was quite cool in the sense of like everything you watched was connected. But not everything needs to be like that. Like, it makes sense, but why is DC just trying to do the same thing? It's like, but we've got that. We've done that.
Yeah.
We don't need to. What I liked about, I mean, The Flash wasn't a good movie, but what I liked about the idea was it was kind of just basically like, all right, let's just reset everything. And I like the idea of that because it was, it wasn't copying Marvel in the sense of like, oh, we're just going to make the same thing. We're going to do this. It was them just going, okay, we are going to connect it, but we're making a point of it resets the whole thing. Everything can go wherever it wants to go. And I just like the idea of that was the end of it, but it just feels now that doing that, they're kind of like, right, now we've reset it, we're just going to do the same thing Marvel is. It's like, but we don't need to. Yes, it works, sure, but we don't need to do it.
I think DC were copying Marvel, though, with The Flash and resetting everything, because that's kind of what the whole multiverse thing of Marvel is.
What I mean is they ended it. It wasn't like a whole, everything's still connected to that. It was just, well, this is the end to it, And
well, they were trying to set up to set up a new iteration, weren't they? Where Michael Keaton was going to be the new Batman and Supergirl was going to be, because Henry Cavill didn't want to do it anymore. Ben Affleck didn't want to do it anymore. The whole cinematic universe they were trying to set up with Justice League, everything basically completely crumbled. So that movie was a ploy to reset the universe and to try and push it in a new direction. But then Batgirl got cancelled and Supergirl got cancelled, and the rest is history. We're now rebooting the universe again with James Gunn. So
I think we need a Granny Goodness movie. That's what I think we need. That would be great. That's the next one I'm looking forward to.
There's an actual character in DC.
Yep.
Yeah. Granny Goodness.
I think it'd be great.
Well, honestly, after watching this show, if plans go awry with the Batman films, I think it would be perfectly at home on a HBO series like this. I thought that this world of Gotham translated fantastically well to TV, stemming from from Matt Reeves's Batman universe. It is very much a continuation, and I do worry that for anyone that will first off go and watch The Penguin because it's fucking outstanding, but average Joe moviegoer is probably just going to watch the Batman and the Batman 2. They're not going to, a lot of people, unless you're like the diehard fans, probably won't watch this show. And this show does set so much up and bridges so much of a gap, especially with the character of Oswald Cobblepot and sort of like the ending fallout of that whole flood thing. I hated the third act of the Batman. It felt so tacked on by the studio. They do address that and the whole flooding thing of Gotham, but I was going to bring this up to you because that ties into the backstory of Victor in that he lost his whole family when the Riddler's flood came through Gotham. Did they ever explain where all that water went? Because you remember all the theories thinking that Mr. Freeze was going to be the villain for the second one, and he was going to freeze all the water and everything like that. The water's just gone straight away in this show.
That's what I thought, because it started with, obviously, you had the news reports. That was like the first thing in the show, and then it wasn't there. And then you went to the backstory with like Victor. I think it was like episode 2, episode 3, something like that.
Yeah.
And then it had like him talking to his family, and I thought, okay, we're gonna see. And then we just was kind of like, yeah, and that was it. It was like, oh, okay. So yeah, I do think, yeah, it just evaporated, didn't it?
I couldn't remember if there was a line maybe where they said like they had people like pumping the water out of there or something, but it was very, very strange.
But I mean, you can use like big brushes, can't you? Like brooms, and just like shoo it away.
Just a lot of kitchen roll, just soak it all up.
What they did.
Let's talk about let's go into it with characters then. So we may as well talk about the titular character first. Colin Farrell returns once again playing Oswald. I want to say Cobblepot, Oswald Cobb, and it really does follow him. Although there are a lot of other players in this series, which it does give the time to focus on. I think episode 4 itself does focus on Sophia Falcone almost entirely, actually. But it does keep the focus on the Penguin, and it does kind of cycle back round to him towards the very end. Absolutely outstanding performance from Colin Farrell. Honestly, Colin Farrell for me gets so overlooked as sort of like one of the best actors in the business today. Because when you look at that guy's body of work, he is so versatile with his roles. And I have to keep reminding myself that it's Colin Farrell playing him, because he disappears completely into that character, not only with the voice and the mannerisms, the way that he walks, the physicality of the performance, but also getting that kind of performance and level of emotion through however many pounds of makeup that he's under. I mean, getting into that makeup every day must be like the most grueling task ever. Granted, he's an A-list actor and he's getting paid millions, so suck it up, buttercup kind of thing. But
yeah,
it's got to be difficult to just deliver that kind of performance in that kind of makeup, and he fucking nails it. They should throw every single award they have his way, because it is his story. When you go into sort of the backstory of him, not only the continuation from the character where we last left off, I do actually really want to go back to the Batman film now and rewatch it again, knowing everything I know about the character, and see how that reinforms my perception of the character from that first movie, and see if it still, if it still all ties in properly to that character, which I think it probably will. I thought he was absolutely outstanding all the way through this.
The thing is that the Batman does feel very watered down in comparison to this.
It does, yes. So that's one of the reasons that I'm apprehensive to go back to that film. When I watched this, I thought, not that language is everything, but it's got profanity in there. The violence is ramped up. The maturity level to the script and the characters and what they can actually show and get away with ain't even close to what they were doing with the Batman. So yeah, I feel like you're never going to get like an 18 rated Batman film. They're not going to do it. The Batman Part 2 is not going to, it'll be R rated. It'll probably be like a 15, like the first one was. But even then, like the level of maturity between even that film to this, it's completely night and day.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, though, but that's the kind of maturity you need in a Batman universe. Well, not need. No, that's wrong. I wouldn't say you need it, but like...
But this darker take,
if
better.
You've got a darker take on it, because it's realistic that way. And this is the thing, and this is what I've always, said about stories or anything, is what I like is when things are realistic, in the sense of, like, you don't need to have, if you've got an 18 rated movie, you don't need to have them swearing every other sentence. You don't need to have violence in every other scene. But, I like when a TV show or a movie or whatever, it's it is what it is. Whatever genre you want it to be, and it's got the right level of profanity or violence or whatever, where it's just kind of like, well, they're in a criminal underworld. Of course, there's a lot of swearing. Of
Hmm.
course, there's a lot of violence. Or if it's just people in their day-to-day life, they don't swear every single second. But this person, swore once. Cool. That's
Hmm.
what people would do in life. Like, I like it when there's that hint of realism, rather than like, I don't know, you just have a TV show where something gets serious, someone has an argument, but there's no like language beyond like PG-13, and it's just like, but you situation. I get it for certain, points and stuff, but like I just like it when there's the realism and when everything is like, yeah, that's there for a reason and that fits, and that's what this does. The reason it's as violent as it is because it makes sense, because it would be that violent. You see the right amount of blood, which there's a lot of,
Hmm.
because there would be in those situations, but it doesn't go over the top. It's not like people, I mean, people do brutally murder people, and it's like it does happen. But what I mean is, it's not like to the point where you think you just got that in there because it looks cool. It's to the point where it's like all of this makes perfect sense for where it should be.
Yeah, everything serves the story. Everything's congruent to the world that it's creating, and this really, really sort of desperate criminal underworld of Gotham, which we did see a bit of in the first film, but this one just takes it to a whole other level completely. I knew we were in safe hands pretty much from the opening scene. Oswald Cobb goes on a phenomenal journey in this, in that he's never a good guy anyway, but by the end of the series, and the arc that he goes on, he becomes a completely irredeemable villain.
Mm.
Because a lot of the times, whenever you have a spin-off based on a villain, they kind of make him a bit of an anti-hero. It's just sort of like the natural role of the main character is usually the protagonist, so we're kind of following them. So even though they might not be an inherently good like paragon character, there's still usually some gray areas there to latch onto. By the end of this series, there is none. Like, Oswald Cobb is one of the most vile fucking human beings ever. You can't even call him that. And when that bat signal goes on at the end, you just like, yeah, I want to see Batman fuck this guy up in the sequel, like, completely. I want him to just like break every single bone in his body from everything that he's caused during this whole series. But we introduced to Oswald Cobblepot as this guy who's kind of the lackey almost. He doesn't feel like he's gaining, he has the respect that he deserves and that he wants. He's kind of the whipping boy, really. He is the Penguin, as they keep calling him, mockingly. And I knew we were in safe hands right from that opening scene where he's sitting in front of Alberto Falcone, who has inherited the Falcone crime family, and then he just fucking shoots him at the end. He goes on this long spiel about how there was this person on his estate who was this mafioso kind of character. But he had the respect. He'd remember your name. He'd ask how your family were doing. If you needed cash, he'd give you some. He used to drive around with gold rims, and you could tell, like, from childhood, he looked up to this person as a hero, as someone to aspire to. And that reinforces his whole arc, that he wants to be in that top penthouse suite. He wants that same level of swagger and respect and notoriety of all the mafioso crime bosses that he grew up with. And I mean, just gunning down Alberto Falcone not only serves the plot, and that it gets things moving, and that it puts Oz in the complete shit at the beginning and sets up this whole warring feud between the Maronis and the Falcones, but also it shows exactly what kind of character he is. He is impulsive straight away. As soon as Alberto's mocking him, he doesn't even think, he doesn't even process, he just guns him down straight away, and then has to try and pick up the pieces afterwards. And I think that's very consistent of the Penguin's character throughout. He's very reactionary. He's very quick to anger. And he's like a rat, isn't he? Like, he will cling on for survival under any circumstances, no matter what. He will screw anyone over at any point to achieve his goals. Yeah, fascinating character. Complete narcissist as well, especially by the end of it. My God, but
Yeah, and that's what you want from this character, because the thing
yeah,
is as well, and the thing you got to, I'd say got to steer clear of, but like when Batman started years and years ago, like obviously it was nowhere near as dark as it is today. And then as the years went on, everything developed, got darker, and villain backstories were modified and they got darker and darker. And that's what kept happening with everyone. And that's great because Batman works like that, and that's fine. But what I'm saying is, what you've got to be careful of in the sense of like, you can't just make everyone a serial killer. That's not what everyone is dark on. Like, do you know what I mean? It doesn't. That's not the only way for someone to be dark. You can't just make everyone a psychopath. And I think the Penguin handles it really, really well because he's not your general just psychopath of like going around doing not the typical. He doesn't become like the Joker, which I think a lot of places kind of do, because it's kind of like, oh, the Joker's popular, and they gravitate towards, we need psychopaths, we need people just, you kill people and it's just random. But there's a lot of yes, he's impulsive, but there's a lot of, he has his end goal, he wants, he's wealthy, and then also where him looking after his mum, it's very sort of like there's more to it, and he doesn't just kill people because he likes killing people. He kills people when it's necessary, and yes, they probably will be killed by him eventually, but it's a necessary thing. And I think he's very, very unique in this movie, in this series.
Yeah, the thing with his mom as well plays a huge part. I kind of underestimated how much this would play a part because the show's fantastic of where it drops its revelations and its plot twists, and you think you know a character, you think you've got them, completely nailed and how they operate, and then they'll throw in like a new twist or a new revelation that completely alters your perception of that character. And a lot of that is to do with the mom as well, because as I mentioned, whenever they do a film or a series based on a villain, you usually get these sympathetic qualities to them that make them almost like an anti-hero. And at first I thought that's what they were doing with Oswald Cobblepot. You mentioned towards the beginning of the series when you were watching like the first 2 or 3 episodes, you loved how funny it was. And it is, like, a lot of the things that he says, it's very comedic and you're kind of on his side and you want to see him progress. You kind of want to see him take out the Falcones and the Maronis, and you're kind of rooting for him in a weird way. And especially where we see that empathetic side to him, his mom, and she's got Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. I think Lewy body dementia is the condition that she has. And your heart goes out to him, like he's a horrible fucking despicable person even at the beginning of the show, but he's almost got like a heart of gold, which as the series goes on, you realize isn't the case at all. And this character doesn't have a heart. He never has. He is, they compare him to the devil by the end of the series, in that he's completely beyond saving. You don't realize how beyond saving he is from such an early age as well when we get towards those last few episodes and it's coming to a head with the finale. And you have the revelation with the brothers in that he just locked them in that flood overspill tunnel and just left them down there because he was possessive of his mom. He was a little mama's boy. Looked like Sophia Falcone has this story about a bird pushing its brothers out of the nest, which is a fantastic simile at that point, a metaphor for the whole story, I think. And the fact that the mom knew, I want to say as well, Deirdre O'Connell, who plays the mom, Frances Cobb, arguably perhaps turns in the best performance of the series. So difficult to say because all of them are fantastic in every single one of their respective roles. But my God, her towards the end, how she acts, with the dementia and like the flashback scenes as well, and the emotional outbursts towards the end. I mean, wow, talk about a character that ends up having a fate worse than death by the end of this show.
Well, it's one of those things of I did think that, and I was like, isn't that like really cruel, the fact that it's like, but we're keeping you alive. I get, like, he basically kept her alive after that, but I was there thinking, like, but if doctors keep you alive, and like to do what? To kind of stare into nothingness. I was like, that's just awful. Like,
well, it's the fact that her own son didn't like have the balls to do it, because that was one of her final pleas to him, wasn't it? It was that, don't let me become like a vegetable. Like, when the time comes, I want to die with dignity, and you've got to be the one to do it. And he makes that promise to her, and ultimately by the end of the show, he doesn't. He gets at the penthouse, the room with a view, and she's not there to give him that praise, which is what he so craves. Which that weird, strange Oedipus complex he has by the end of the show, where his
Yeah,
hooker, his woman, he gets her to, like, very Norman Bates, gets her to dress up like his mom and say, like, "I'm proud of you, my son," and like, "You're my baby boy," and like, oh,
yeah.
it's fucking great, but it's it's so twisted and demented. I love it.
I know that was that was a good bit. I what I you know what I didn't like though at the end was I didn't like the bat signal showing up at the end.
No, I thought that was a good moment for a show that we'll talk about the absence of Batman, because I feel like that needs to be addressed because
But that's what I mean. It's like the bat signal showing up at the end did feel not out of place because it's a Batman thing, and I get it, and it was cool. But what I didn't like was there was no mention of Batman at all. I'm not saying he needs to show up every 5 seconds because he doesn't, and it would make it a very Batman can't be everywhere at once, and also it would make it a very different series. And I like the fact that Batman wasn't there constantly, but there wasn't a single mention of him. It's like he didn't exist in this universe
yeah.
until the end with the bat signal. Felt very sort of like you put that in because you needed to. It's kind of like I mean, if we get the Joker in the Batman 2 or whatever, cool. But if we don't, it's kind of like that in the sense of you put the Joker at the end of the Batman because it's like, oh, just because we need the Joker in there, it's like, but you don't need it.
Mhm.
Like, does he serve a purpose? Yeah, it's a cool cameo. It's like the Bat signal, it's a cool cameo. But if you're not going to mention him anywhere else, Batman in this universe, it feels very pushed in just because they think, oh, people will like that, you know?
Yeah, I can see that maybe it was a bit fan servicey. I thought it was beautifully set up because it does kind of get you G'd up and teed up for the next Batman film. This being sort of like that intermediary show between the two. So I like that, and the placement was good, where she says, "No one's going to stand in your way now." Bat signal goes on. I thought that's
Yeah.
fucking awesome. So I did like that, but it is weird that he doesn't get more of a mention, especially considering where we're introduced to Batman in the previous film. Batman in that first film is Batman Year Two. He's been in operation in Gotham, so still fairly early on. He's still fairly green to it, but he has been in operation in Gotham for 2 years. Criminals are talking about him. Criminals fear to walk out in the streets or go into like the alleyways at night because of the threat of the Batman. He already has that notoriety and that presence in Gotham already after just 2 years. And especially after all the exploits that happened with the city and the flooding and the Riddler, and Batman saying, ultimately Batman's arc at the end of that first movie saying, I need to be more than just vengeance. I can't just go out punching people. I need to be a symbol of hope for the people. And, he's helping people out of the wreckage and literally guiding people through the darkness, with light, in that final shot. And there's plenty of opportunities where Batman could do that in this show. There's a moment, I forget which episode it is, it's towards the end of the series, where a huge explosion goes off, a huge car bomb that completely destroys like however many miles radius of the slums. I can't remember whereabouts they say it is in Gotham. They give it a name. I can't remember the name of it. It's weird that Batman would not be on the scene, either helping people out or looking into that. That's weird to me. The whole thing of like the warring factions, the warring crime families, the Falcones and the Maronis. I could imagine that Batman might sit that one out and just kind of watch it play out to see what happens and intervene when he needs to. But Penguin's ascension and the bomb going off and everything with Sophia Falcone, it's weird. Yeah, it's weird that Batman isn't even mentioned at any point,
Yeah.
especially because the Penguin came face to face with Batman in the previous film as well.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I didn't need him to show up necessarily, but like you say, to be mentioned, it felt weird that he just wasn't. It's like he didn't exist.
Yeah.
It did because the thing is as well. Like, this was set after the Batman, and every now and then through the series, I had to remind myself of that because it felt like this is before it because no Batman, and it felt like it could have been like, well, this was before the movie. But what I did like about that though is you didn't need to see the movie to watch this, and I don't think you'll need to watch this to see the second one. I think there
Mm-hmm.
might be little references, but I don't think you'll need to watch it, and I think that's good because you know, I mean, for myself, I will watch anything Batman in a lot of ways, but like, not everyone's like that. You know, when you've got you know, a like if you've got a movie series and then you've got like a TV show and it's like, oh yeah, but then there's giant references that like we need to watch TV show to understand, you're going to alienate so many people. You know, it's kind of like if they had like a, you know, a comic book, a prequel comic book or something, which sometimes they do. But if it's heavily referenced, it's like, well, you need to read that first. It's like, do you know how many people you've alienated? You can't
Yeah.
have it so you need to read that. It's a good idea, but to need to and make it a must is, you shouldn't do that. And I think that's what they're not going to do with them. But they're not going to make it a must, which is good.
They could probably recap a lot with if they continue the whole conceit of the voiceover, because Robert Pattinson kind of narrates a lot of bits in the first Batman film, doesn't he? Like Gotham City, the criminal under, you know, his voice. You could probably get a lot of exposition through at the beginning of that film, saying much has changed in Gotham. Cobblepot now sits atop, you know, has risen up from the iceberg lounge to the, and you can get it all out in dialogue of
Yeah,
everything
you
that
can.
happens in
And the
this.
thing is that works because again, it's like, okay, cool, but we don't need to know how, in the sense of it's nice, go watch the series, but we don't need to, in the sense of you're not missing and gonna think, who the hell's this character? Why did they say this? What's going on here? It's not gonna have a Kingdom Hearts effect, you know, where you're like, well, I didn't play chain, I have no idea what's going on. That's
Yeah.
not gonna happen, you know. So yeah, I'm curious to see how much they reference, because I think references would be cool. And references, the great thing about having those little references, it makes you feel like, I watched it, I know about this, and it feels nice. But you don't want anything too big, because you don't want to alienate certain people.
Yeah, and Matt Reeves was, I don't know if he was a producer, an executive producer on this, but he kind of had a helping hand in helping cast and hire people. So he knows where the story's going. And I think that's going to be at the forefront. So I think it's in safe hands, and he knows what he's doing and how he can continue it into the next one. And we've got a comment from Bath Time who says, I've only seen the first 4 episodes, but I quite enjoyed it. Got a bit samey, to be honest, but overall you lads liked it. And I think you made the right choice doing a full-on series review rather than episode by episode. Yeah, me too. I think there would have been stuff to say per episode, but I think this is designed to be looked at as a
Well,
complete piece.
this is what I said, isn't it, to you? I preferred the first half. You know, I wouldn't say it got samey. I did like it, and I liked the episodes made me think, oh, I want to watch the next one. And especially like the last 3, I definitely was like, oh, I need to watch that. I'd like, you know, it was obviously, I was like that for a lot of it, but like, it could sometimes become easy in the sense that I'd watch 2 and then I'd be like, right, I'll watch the next 2 tomorrow or something. I wanted to pace it out a little bit rather than watching one in one. But like the last 3, it was hard to do that. I was like, I'll just watch the
I
next one
watched
now.
the last 3 together as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that was so. But I did overall, I think, prefer the beginning of it. I think just because the beginning was more like, I wouldn't I wouldn't say it's faster paced, but I think there was a lot of differences. By the time you got to the end, it was very focused on one thing, which is great, and I wouldn't change any of it. But I think that's why I preferred the beginning, because it was kind of like, oh, you don't know where this is going to go. There was a lot more mystery, but by the end of it, it's kind of like I I mean, there was a lot of times you didn't know where things were going to go in this, like when, you know, Victor like disappears here or goes there, and you were like, oh, I want to know where he's going. But you knew a lot of, I knew a lot of the characters by this point. I knew sort of like what kind of story we were telling. But I think at the beginning there was a lot of mystery and a lot of, like I say, there was comedy as well, and there was a lot of like, is this going to happen here? Is this going to happen here? And I think that's why I really enjoyed the first half.
Mm. Bath Time says it just seems Penguin gets into a situation with no way out, improvises and gets out, but will be in trouble later. That was every episode to me. Oh, I don't know if I agree with that. I think, you know, it's all part of his journey to the top. I like seeing these warring factions, how, you know, he backs one side of the family, which takes him so far, then plans go awry, and then he's like a double agent for the Maronis, and then when plans go right, you know, he'll flip-flop back in order to just stay afloat. I think that kind of comes with most sort of crime series, whether it's Sopranos or the or Goodfellas or, you know, The Godfather, whatever it happens to be. There is a moment in this show as well that is very much that Godfather moment too, where they're just sort of killing off all the members of the
There's
crime family.
There's a very specific scene that is literally the Goodfellas. Very, very, very the same. Um, yeah, there's a very specific scene which obviously there are people here that haven't seen the whole thing, so I won't say it. But like, there's a very specific thing which is it feels like it's literally taken directly out of Goodfellas, and I think that was great to watch.
I completely disagree with Bath Time here. Now, Bath Time, tread carefully with this video, man. I implore you to watch the last 4 episodes. Please finish off this series. This series goes play. You haven't even begun to see half of the revelations and twists that this show has to offer. There's so much more content to this show and where we end up with the characters. And it's going to be pertaining to this comment right here. Bath Time says, I also hated the bit about the kid going to the bus stop to go off with his girlfriend. I wish writers stopped turning female characters into a massive drag to the story. I'm going to completely disagree with you there. I think all of the female characters were phenomenal in this show. When the trailers first came out for this thing, and I was still fairly lukewarm on the idea of the show, I had 2 major concerns. My first concern was the character of Victor. I didn't know his name at the time, but Victor. And I was like, why does the Penguin need a sidekick? Why do we need this little kid who's going to tag along with him? Is it just a character for the Penguin to chat to, basically? And he is so much more than that. A very, very fleshed out character and a very tragic character too. Again, Bath Time, please, please go and watch the show. I'm basically giving away the ending here, so please do tread carefully. I think he works because he is almost like the audience envoy to the show. He is that, I won't say innocent, because no one's innocent in Gotham. We're introduced to the character and he's trying to steal hubcaps from Penguin's car, is ingratiated into this world. And pretty much as soon as that happens, you kind of know there's only one way to go with this. If you fall into this lifestyle, there ain't no way out of it. There ain't no happy ending. So his fate is ultimately sealed from the beginning. And he has his one chance, his one get out of jail free card, which you don't realize at the time. But that bit where he's intending to go off and move away from Gotham and start a new life with this girl that he's fallen in love with. And she buys him a ticket and she's waiting for him at the bus stop. And he has a chance to go. And he doesn't because of the allure of this lifestyle and the money and the respect. And also the fact that Oswald very manipulatively almost becomes like a father figure to him, this mentor figure to him. And he's the one person who believes in him. I love the subtlety as well that Victor has quite a bad stammer initially and is a very nervous kid around a lot of people. But Oswald is very patient with him. He doesn't rush him through his sentences like, oh, come on, spit it out, kid. He sits and waits. And he has that respect for him because at the time you think, well, Oswald also would have grew up being ridiculed and bullied and everything. And he doesn't want it, he knows what it feels like. And you get sucked in as well. You get manipulated just like Victor does. Ultimately, where he ends up in that final scene of the show, he had to be the sacrificial lamb. He had to. And the character had ultimately served his purpose. He had proven himself a loyal follower. But as Penguin says, I can't have emotional attachments. I need to completely divorce myself away from that. And Victor is his last shot at that. His mom, he's got on life support. She's completely gone, basically. And he's got, the surrogate sort of like hooker who's going to perform as his mum now, which so creepy, but it's so great. Victor is kind of that last loose thread that needs eliminating in one of the most brutal moments of the show, because it's his most personal kill as well. Like he's kind of welling up as he does it, and he's choking him out. And ultimately, the complete lack, the disregard of him after he's done the deed. There's no tears afterwards. It's done. He's completely disconnected, takes the cash out of the guy's wallet, looks at his ID and just chucks it into the river. And that's it. It's the most unceremonious end to the character, but one that I thought was very necessary, not just for Victor's character and sort of the costs of falling into this lifestyle and what it leads to, but also ultimately for Penguin and making him that irredeemable villain, which he absolutely is by the end of this.
Yeah, I mean, the one character I was kind of 50-50 with, like, in the end, was Sophia's ending. I was a bit only because of the way he walks with her, and it's very, to me, like, well, it's not going to happen, is it? Like, because it was so like, it was so, like, they kept basically saying, oh, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. You're like, but it's not, is it? Because it was so obvious. So you knew something else was going to happen. That's why I was 50-50. So when, she gets taken away, I was like, okay, I kind of saw that happening, though. That to me, that's why I don't think it's badly done. I just think, to me, it's like what I would have preferred and what I kind of expected. I say I would have preferred, because she wouldn't be around anymore if this happened. But I'm like, I like, good characters dying. It's great.
Hmm.
But like, what I would have liked is it. There was a moment where she's got yeah, it's when he breaks free and he shoots them. Just at some point for her to appear, and he just shoots her. Like, it's kind of a sudden thing. I kind of, in the back of my mind, thought that could happen, and I would have liked that, because it's kind of a bit more of a, it's random in a way. Whereas this felt more sort of, they were alluding to him shooting her, and then he didn't, and it was like, well, we knew that because of what they were alluding to.
Hmm.
So that, to me, was it wasn't a bad thing. It just, because I understood why it all happened, and obviously, why the cops did what they did. It was done perfectly well. I don't know. Maybe I just have a thing for my favorite characters dying. I don't know.
Hmm.
But I just think, I don't know. It just felt weird that he put her away. But then again, it's kind of a fate worse than death, isn't it?
Well, yeah, because I was thinking that ultimately, Penguin's monologue at the end as he's killing Victor is that I can't have that emotion from where I'm going to the top now. You'd kind of hold me back emotionally, so I need to eliminate that so that I can just be the Penguin, the crime boss that I need to be. But then, yeah, he does still keep his mom around, and I expect that if Batman did pull the plug, or if someone came in and killed, that would still be an emotional attachment to his mom, unless the fact that she is, gone, basically, she is a vegetable, that she already has kind of died in his eyes and he's moved on. He's got his hooker to play his mom now and he's dancing with her. She's taken the role that his mom once had. And almost keeping his mom alive isn't some kind of, well, I can't kill you, mom, because I love you. It's almost like one in the eye for his mom, who, she said that she was going to kill him. She was going to let him get in the car with that mafioso, and he was going to kill him. She knew that Oswald was the one that killed her other two sons, his brothers. She knew all along. So this kind of is her penance, really. She is literally in hell. He is the devil, and this is her idea of hell now. I saw it as more of not an emotional attachment from the Penguin to his mom to keep her alive at the end. Well, alive in ever sense you can think of that. It's more of a revenge ploy to his mom. Like, look, Ma, I made it. Fuck you, kind of. That's how I interpret it. You could probably look at it in both ways, but I don't think it was out of some kind of compassion, because there is no compassion in him at all.
Yeah, it was also very sort of like, you're going to see how I turn out, whether you like it or not, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. No, I did all like all that with his mom. I think I could say Sophia again. If she died, she wouldn't see where he became, and now she can kind of see it on the TVs and stuff and see that she's lost. So it did make sense. I don't know. I think it was all quite like, when it got to it, I kind of saw it coming, and I was like, oh, I was right. I didn't love the fact that I was right in a way.
Mm. I was just having a look here about the character of Victor, and it says Victor's characterization incorporates elements from that of Jason Todd, the second character to assume the
Well, yeah, the
persona of
exact
Batman's
same
sidekick Robin.
beginning. He goes to steal tires.
Oh, is that? Oh,
Yeah,
see, I need to
that's where
read
he
more
met
Batman
Jason Todd.
comics.
Yeah, he was goes to steal the tires off his Batmobile.
Hmm. And apparently there was
Yeah.
going to be a scene where Robert Pattinson was in the show, and he was going to speak to Victor's character, but they ultimately decided not to pursue that. I don't think it was ever shot. I think it was just an idea they had in the writers' room. I'm glad they didn't. I think maybe if they had have had Bruce Wayne in there, that would have raised and highlighted his absence throughout the rest of the show even more. So I think it makes sense not to have him in there at all. But yeah, I guess he is sort of like the villain equivalent of that Robin character, isn't he? You mentioned Sophia there, which was my second concern for this show when I watched the trailer. We watch a lot of recent media, and the whole modern idea of how they think women should be written for media, and they always turn out to be boring OP characters who talk down to everyone, and they're not compelling and they're not written particularly well in the slightest. Look at anything Disney have been producing for like the last 10 or so years. And when I saw the trailer and the clips they showed, and it was Sophia going like, oh, I'm going to be the head of this family. I'm amazing, and all of you are nothing. And I saw this, and I thought, oh no, she's going to be the real main character of this, and they're going to take the focus away from Penguin. How wrong I was. Kristen Milotti as Sophia Falco, ultimately Gigante by the end of it, might be. It's so difficult to say who the standout is in this because everyone's fantastic. You've got Colin Farrell is amazing. You've got the one who plays his mom. Everyone plays their character so well, but I was blown the fuck away by Sophia Falcone's character. The showrunner as well, a woman, Lauren LaFranc. I was like, oh my God, you have reinstated my faith in modern media that people can write women well and have them be a compelling character, a strong character, an interesting character with weaknesses and strengths. And I've forgotten what this felt like. It was so refreshing to have a show in 2024 that I fucking love and might be one of my favorite things that I've ever seen. She was a fantastic antagonist. She was an amazing protagonist in some parts as well. What this show does so well throughout is that you see where they're all villains. They're all horrible, despicable characters, but you can all see where they came from. And you could almost root for them in certain parts of the show. Initially with the Penguin, as I said, where he's looking after his mom and you don't know all the twists and the turns at that point. You really sympathize with him. And it's like, yeah, you want to see him rise to the top. But then you learn that he screwed over Sophia Falcone. You're like, well, why should I care about her? She's a serial killer. She's the hangman. She killed all of these women. Then you get that fantastic, I think it's episode 4, the flashback episode, which shows that she wasn't, and she was wrongfully imprisoned in absolute hell on earth in Arkham Asylum for a decade with no hope of escape. And you really feel fucking bad for her. But then also she gasses her entire family, and that scene with the little girl towards the end of the series. She is an absolute son of a bitch as well. Everyone is irredeemable in this show. But it's fantastic how you kind of, all of these different players, you can absolutely see where they came from and why they're fighting for what they're fighting for.
Do you know what? She is she's very similar to the Joker in a lot of ways of, that whole, I know because he talks about like one bad day, that sort of stuff. Yeah, it's kind of like she had a really bad experience, then she just kind of goes completely insane and goes completely different. So she's got very similar qualities to him in that way.
Mm-hmm.
At first, who was the girl in the asylum with her that she kills?
Oh, I can't remember her name, but
yeah, at first I thought this is going to be. I mean, I know we already had the Joker kind of set up, but I thought this was going to be some sort of like, oh, is this like something else they're doing with it? Maybe they've got one or two, like, you know what I mean, like that kind of. I thought they were kind of going to go some sort of way with that, so I was kind of glad that they obviously killed her, and that's not where they went because we'd already set up one, and I was like, what are they going to do with this? Obviously, there could only really be one Joker. I just wasn't sure what kind of idea they were going to go with, so I was kind of glad they killed her off.
Mm-hmm. What I love about when we get that flashback episode of Sophia as well, we do get a recast. It's worth noting. You've got Carmine Falcone in there, who in the movie was played by John Turturro. Apparently didn't want to come back for this series because he didn't agree that the show's focus on violence towards women. Like, you do realize that your own character strangled women in the Batman, right? That was established. But if that was the reason, it's fucking stupid
to
me.
It's like, oh, what was it? What was his name? I can't. Mandy someone. He was in Criminal Minds, and he left the show because he went, "Oh, it's too violent," and then joined another show that was equally as violent. And it was like, oh, okay.
It's so strange, yeah. But he's recast with good, stalwart British actor Mark Strong. You ever need a villain? You got Mark Strong on speed dial. He always turns in a solid performance. I usually hate recasts of things. It kind of ruins my immersion a little bit
Oh yeah,
in the world building. Sometimes it's necessary, but it does kind of take me out a little bit. It's like you have Batman Begins into the Dark Knight, and you have Katie Holmes being replaced by Maggie Gyllenhaal. I don't see that as the same character. Her mannerisms, how she
I
acts
know.
it,
And Katie
feels
Holmes
totally
was
different.
so much more attractive.
I know, agreed.
So
Agreed.
there was that, and it was sad to see. But yeah, no, I agree. It takes you away from that. It's like when they retcon things, and I'm not even talking about big retcons, which some things are so guilty for. I mean, Dragon Ball's one of the biggest ones. I watched a video on it last night, and because I was like, because when there was like a half an hour video on it, I was like, do you know what? I'm surprised this is 4 hours long, and I was just watching it, and I thought it was great. But I'm not even talking about big retcons, like things like that, where it's like, a show, like let's say a show or a series or whatever has been going on for, 20 years, and you can tell it's like, well, they didn't know that was going to happen, so they've just kind of made that a thing, and you can kind of see this really contradicts this. I'm not even talking about big things, just even little things where I'm trying to think. So like what's it called, like one person, like they're quite close to their parents, let's say, and then a year down the line you don't see those parents anymore. It's like, but they were really close. Like, you do realize you've already established something here. Like, even things like that take me away from it. The biggest ones for it though is some TV shows do it. They're like Happy Days did it, where like a character was in it, then suddenly just never mentioned again, and then they just no idea where they went, and everyone acts like they never existed, and then there's even references to a time that happened, that character was present, but that character isn't referenced. It's like, you've literally just erased the character from history. You can't do that. Like, I really hate those kind of things. So yeah, discrepancies like that are it ruins the immersion.
It does suck. However, I'm all right with this one. Number one, Mark Strong's great. I think he does play a very, because I went back and watched clips of John Turturro as Carmine Falcone again. It is a very different depiction of the character. I think Mark Strong is a lot more intimidating and feels more evil, whereas Carmine Falcone does strike me as, he's got so much swagger. He's kind of relaxed. He just feels like a normal guy, which kind of makes him more dangerous when you know what he gets up to and what he's capable of. But it is a flashback. It is a younger Carmine Falcone, and I was like, you know what? I'm okay with that in that respect. Would it have been nice to have the same actor back, maybe de-aged a little bit? Sure. But I think Mark Strong still works, and I think it's still in keeping with his character from the Batman, in terms of that we know that he murders women, and now we know that he murders a lot more women with this show around, killing, what is it, 7 women or something like that, including his wife, Sophia's mother. And then by the end of the series, you get the parallels as well, because in that flashback episode, you have Carmine who's consoling his daughter, and saying, "Oh, you're delusional. You're losing your mind. You think that I murdered your mother? Like, you're insane. You need to be locked up. You need professional help." Is exactly what Oswald says to his mom when his mom's about to get a finger chopped off, unless he admits that he did actually kill his brothers. It's almost like Penguin has convinced himself of his own lie. Like, he has just completely cut that part of his life out and has created this new reality for himself. And what's the first thing he says to his mom when she's like, says, admit it? He says, "Nah, you're confused. You're losing your mind. It's the dementia. It's got to you. You're not thinking things through clear." I love that parallel between Carmine and Oswald in that moment.
The thing about those kind of things as well, when like you see characters do that, when you say like they're convinced of their own lie, I think the great thing about Penguin is he's very sort of, he sticks to his thing, like he sticks to being who he is. There's never really a moment where he deviates from his character. There's never really a moment where you think, well, one, maybe, yeah, or would he really do that? But also, there's never really a moment where he doesn't stick to his guns. It's kind of like that's what he's sticking with. That's his lie. He's gonna just keep to it. And I think that's important in that kind of world as well. That when you've done something, if you're gonna act a certain way about it, that's the way you act about it. You can't show any weakness, which is one big thing he's made a point of. So yeah, and I think that was really, really important to show because it really shows how strong he is in that world. And no one really knows him, kind of thing.
Yeah, no,
Always
which
gonna be a
makes him.
mystery.
Yeah, which that mystery adds to the terrifying nature of the character and what he's capable of. Trade of All Jack says Sophia was an amazing antagonist of the show, and pretty much most of the characters in the show, while guilty of doing malicious actions, have also a sympathetic side that the viewer can root for. I can't think of another show that does that. Yeah, it's very rare when the writing is that on point for every single character and not a single character falls to the wayside. Yeah, Sophia Gigante, absolutely loved her character and was almost immediately on board. I loved how completely unhinged she was. The performance from Milotti is incredible. Like her facial mannerisms and everything, but even the way she holds herself. I watched an interview where she said she had a movement coach of how to the physicality of the character. You don't even think about that with the Penguin. Yeah, you think of, he's got the limp and he's got the makeup and whatnot, but you're just like, oh well, Sophia Gigante, whatnot. But the way she moves around does feel almost very robotic, does kind of feel awkward. It's that she's scared of everyone. She's been in Arkham for 10 years. She's been beaten. She's been, God only knows what else for 10 years. She does kind of have this nervous, she could snap at any moment quality to her. And then later on, where she basically becomes Cruella de Vil from like all the big fur coats and the hair and everything. She completely has that swagger and that presence when she walks into a room. A touch that I really liked with the character as well, don't know if you noticed it, is that a lot of the time when she's wearing like a coat or a dress, she has it off the shoulder and she's got like all scars on her shoulder, like on her neck and on her shoulder, and she's like broadcasting that. She's showing that almost sort of, look what I've been through kind of thing. They never even draw reference to that, I don't think, but I just noticed that, and I love that subtlety to the character, and you can completely understand why she would do that as well.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. At first, when I saw, because it's not drawn reference to, I wasn't sure if it was just the lighting. I was like, what's going on with the, and I saw it and I was like, oh, okay, that's why that's there, and I thought that was really, really cool. But yeah, it's not drawn reference to, which the thing about a lot of series and movies as well is you get a lot of spoon-fed stuff where they draw reference to everything, and we don't always need that.
Yeah. Well, there's even things where I think you messaged me when you were watching like episode 1 or episode 2, and you said, my God, Sophia's got an appetite on her, hasn't she? And then you completely understand that because, she would have been fed absolutely like fuck all, like when she was in Arkham for 10 years, that she's almost loving, whether it's like a coping mechanism or the fact that she's like, oh my God, I get to enjoy actual food again. All little things like that. If there was one character I thought was the weakest tied in with the whole Sophia stuff, it would probably be Dr. Julian or Dr. Rush. I don't really know what they were intending to do with that character because he's her psychiatrist at Arkham when she's basically getting, shock therapy and tortured and whatnot, and he takes a fascination to her. And then ultimately becomes a therapist as well. And then there's like this kind of weird sub-dom sadomasochistic relationship going on in one part, which they draw reference to. I'm not really sure where this character's loyalties lie, and I don't even know if this is like a criticism of the show in general. I think it's more just something that I would have loved to have seen. I told you about this earlier. I don't want it to be like cameo central, but I do wish there was perhaps a greater sense of world building with some other Batman characters. For example, some people are thinking that he was originally meant to be Jonathan Crane, the Scarecrow. Someone's done like a snapshot where you can see the Scarecrow mask and the syringe glove from like the Arkham Asylum games on his desk in one shot in that episode 4. Or maybe he could have been like Dr. Hugo Strange or something. That would have been cool.
If he was Hugo Strange, or if he was, Jonathan Crane, like you wouldn't need the mask and stuff like that in it. You just need the name. Like, I feel like that's big enough. To have that as well. I think if they, if you watch Jonathan Crane, then you found out he was Jonathan Crane, and then he had the mask. I'd be like, that's very heavy. You just need one, you know,
Mm.
maybe don't mention his name. And then if you had like the kind of like, oh, that the Scarecrow, it's kind of like, oh, okay, maybe, possibly. But, or like I say, just have his name and that's it. I think one for certain characters would be good. I think what would have been great is if even little characters just kind of one showed up and they mention their name, they're not even in it long, and then they just disappear, and you're like, that person's this person. Oh, okay, like just something little, because we didn't really get any of that in this.
Yeah, no, totally. As I say, like, it's not a detriment to the actual show as to what we presented. I think, the show works and operates completely fine without that. And I don't want them to ever go overboard with that, where everyone is a character. Every single
Yeah,
second they're trying to think of a way to crowbar a name from the Batman universe that we know. But I did think, this is kind of your opportunity. If you are branching out this greater Batman world, they don't even necessarily need to appear in one of the movies. But it's just nice to know
yeah,
that they're kind of
exactly. It's
in the
kind
world.
of like, I mean, I know they did this with Gotham. This is why the ideas come into my head. But like, because for instance, like Penguin's obviously selling drugs. He's obviously there's a big drug thing going on. Even if there was something in the sense of like, I don't know, let's say he was talking to someone, he's like, yeah, but remember when you tried to sell that product that you wanted to pass off as something called Venom, which was terrible, just something like that, and that's it. And it's kind of a reference to the whole, like, there's a thing going on which didn't happen, and then obviously later on it does become Venom, Bane becomes fake, like, but it's just reference to, like, like I say, remember when you tried to pass off that and a load of people died, and it's like, okay, and you see again little pieces of the world. That's all we need.
Well, there's that moment in the first Batman film as well, which I think both me and you thought it was Venom as well. When Batman's fighting that henchman at the end, and it's like this green syringe that he injects himself with that acts
Yeah.
as like adrenaline, and then he gets up and he goes like fucking crazy, and he starts just wailing on this guy, punching him, beating him into a pulp. And both me and you were like, "Oh, that would be cool if you called that Venom, or if you set it up just so it's in the world,
But
it's
never
there if
call
you
it
need it."
Titan. Never
Never
call
caught.
it
Yeah, that
Titan.
was so. I hated that. Yeah, that was a weird choice. That was a weird choice. So yeah, maybe bits of stuff like that throughout the show would have been nice. There's going to be another
Yeah.
example I was thinking of as well to do with this. But no, Sophia. So ultimately, where she ends back in her own personal hell. There was a moment where I was thinking, why isn't Penguin killing her in this moment? He's got a dead bang. He leads her out into the middle of nowhere with a gun to her back. Sophia's completely lost everything. She's completely lost the war. But then I thought, well, no, that actually this is kind of brilliant, because she is in the one place that she fears the most. She is in literal hell
Yeah.
right now. She's gone back to Arkham, which
Well,
I
that's
thought
the
was quite.
thing, and
Yeah.
that's what that's what I kind of thought. But like when it was happening, he puts the gun to her head. I thought, well, this is too kind of good to be true in a way, in the sense that it's not going to happen. We know something else is going to happen, or this. I mean, I didn't necessarily think this was what was going to happen, but or it could be he puts the gun to her head and then the series ends, and it's like it's very inconspicuous. Like but I was like, he's not just going to shoot her because it's too simple,
Yeah.
so when the police came and everything, I was kind of like, well, that was expected that something else was going to happen, and I did like the outcome. But like I say, I would have preferred more of it, like if it happened in a shock way, whereas to me I always was like, something's going to happen, you know.
I'm actually kind of glad they didn't kill her off, though, because she is one of the biggest saving graces of the. I say saving grace like the show's terrible and she's the only good thing about it. I don't mean it like that, but she's so good. Like, don't kill her off at the end of this. Let's keep her around. I want to see her in the Batman 2 as like a cameo, a couple of scenes. If they do another series of the Penguin, I don't know if that's on the cards. I don't know if they're talking about it. I want to keep her in this world because she's, I want to see where she goes on to, and just the actress is
Well,
incredible as well.
this is the thing. I personally don't think we should have another series of the Penguin
I agree.
because
I agree.
it's done its time. It's done what it's done. The next series would just not be as great. And what you could do is you could have like a Penguin in his rise to power. He's wearing his proper, like, his waist, like his top hat and everything. But we also know they're not going to do that. So unless that was the direction they would head in, no, because it's kind of also like, it was leading somewhere and it got to where it needed to be. Anything else is kind of like, well, we've already seen. We've got him where he needed to be. Everything else
Mm.
would seem very mediocre. Because the thing about a TV series as well is Batman wouldn't be in it. There would be no. It wouldn't be like him going up against Batman. That would be safe for a movie. It would be very sort of like, well, where do you go with this? It's kind of like, because we even said it about like The Dirt is a good example of, it got to the end, Motley Crue broke up, then they got back together. Whereas what actually happened, like in the book, was Vince Neil got back, then Tommy Lee left, and it's kind of like, but what we said was the whole, if you did that in a movie, as much as yes, it would have been great if we had that 90s stuff, you would have had a breakup, then they got back together, then a breakup. It's kind of like that build up to then come back down to then build up again. It's very like that, and I feel like another season of Penguin would kind of do that. It's kind of like, well, we got here, where do we go? And it's like, well, we're going to bring him back. Well, why? We've got him up there. It's kind of doing all that now. So unless we have him really at the top, which we know they're not going to do, it's not going to work.
Yeah, and this serves as that bridging series to get you from the first movie to the second one. Maybe, I mean, it depends what happens in the Batman 2. Maybe they could follow it up with a second series set between Batman 2 and Batman 3. But I kind of want to just see more shows like this, provided
That's what I mean.
provided that
Different
they have the
villains.
same,
Yeah.
different villains maybe, or different just things within this world, provided it has the same maturity level and writing quality that this one does. One of my biggest fears is that if the Batman 2 is shit, it's really going to isolate. It won't have a knock-on effect with this series. This series is still going to be phenomenal. You could, as you said, like, you don't have to watch the Batman to appreciate this series. You could view this as a limited series in and of itself. But I think that if you have a lot of bad products around this one, it is going to be a real shame, because we've got the talent here. We've got the writing, the showrunner, the writer, the directors, the performers, everything is firing on all cylinders with this one. And I kind of want to continue that quality. The Batman started in a fairly good place. There are a lot of things that I don't like in that movie. I think that the writing is, well, first off, the writing is nowhere near as strong as it is in this show. There's a lot of things that conveniently happen in the Batman, and some parts that I just think are downright bad writing, to be honest. It's not a perfect movie, but I think it's a good movie. I think I like the world building of it more, and the actual look and aesthetic of things more so than perhaps the actual script. But after seeing this, it's, if we can maintain this level of quality, not just in the movies, but in all the other TV series, then by all means keep making them. But that's me with all that wish fulfillment, is if quality can be maintained. And so often than not, it isn't. Get a different showrunner, different writer. They could do a Joker series and it could be absolute dog shit. And it's like, oh, well, that's a shame because the Penguin's great.
I don't think the Joker should have a series though.
So
If it was,
I
if it was
want us
just,
to get away from the Joker, especially with the Joker 2 this year. I'm like, we need to
thing
take a
is,
pause.
as you know, the Joker is like my favorite fictional character like ever. So more Joker is great, but I don't think the Joker could do a series, because to do a series you got to have something leading somewhere. And the point of the Joker is it doesn't lead anywhere. It's like, well, I just do things because I do things. Like, he's not got this whole big end goal in mind. Sometimes he's got a bigger end goal in the sense of, I'm going to do this because it's going to happen or whatever. But series wise, it's like that's too much of a process for the Joker.
And you'll need Batman in that. I'm sorry, but you would.
Oh yeah, exactly. Having the Joker without that would just be weird. I mean, they could do. It would be a terrible idea, so they shouldn't. But what they could do is like an origin of like, kind of like you got in the Killing Joke, of where he was like a stand-up comedian, that sort of stuff. What they could do to make a series is that. They shouldn't, because it'd be a terrible idea and we don't want that. But that's the only way I think a series would work for the Joker.
I don't know if we've only seen a deleted scene, but I'm not too keen on Barry Keoghan's take on the Joker. It feels like he doesn't have an identity of his own. I know we've only seen one short scene, but he's doing the Ledger voice, the
Doesn't
look
he
of
lick
the
his
character.
lips like him as well?
Yeah, a little bit. He's
Yeah.
like, he's kind of fucked up as well, and he's like, "Evening, Batman." Like he's got the Ledger voice, and it doesn't seem like it. I'm like, can we get away from that? Ledger's performance is amazing, but I would have liked to have seen something a bit more, I'll say comic accurate, because there's loads of different depictions of the Joker in the comics, but just getting away from that grungy, punky kind of take on the Joker, so Maybe I'll have to
Yeah.
see like if he gets like a bigger part in the next one. I think they're
The
probably setting him up for the third movie, perhaps,
the
and
thing
have him as the
about
final.
well, the thing about the Joker is because you don't know where he comes from. It's all very mysterious. It's like I think it's not. I wouldn't say hard to portray, but sometimes it's kind of like, well, where do we go with this? In the sense of if we want to make it realistic, we've got to do this. He's a burns victim. He's this, or he's got like the scars in his mouth. Whatever route you want to go down, it's like to make it realistic. But then you're like, well, the Joker could be heightened. But then it's like, well, how do we make it? There's it's so we don't know, what he is, where he came from. I think a lot of ways, I think studios have got to be careful in the sense of like, well, if we do this, it's going too far away from the character. But if we do this, it's the same as what we had here. So I think that's also another reason because it's probably hard for them to do things and do it justice as well.
Mm-hmm.
But what I did like
Oh,
was the joke was a very Burns bit. Like he's got his hair falling out.
well, he looks
It's
like he's
kind of
fallen in a vat of chemicals, doesn't he? But I
exactly.
think Matt Reeves have said that the grin that he has and everything is a condition. It's a condition he's had since he was a child, so that kind of rules out the whole falling into the chemicals, which is a shame.
Well, I mean, it doesn't rule out the whole burning his hair out because it does. It's all fallen out ish, which is kind of a cross between what they had in Gotham. But what I liked about like Tim Burton's one was they said the nerves are completely severed. When they talk about that, I like that because it's like, well, that can be a thing. It doesn't always just need to be a condition. Like they had in the Joker, it was a condition he had where he kept laughing, and that worked for that universe. But it's like we can have it so like the mouth is set. I mean, realistically, right? If you tomorrow were to fall into a vat of chemicals, what would happen to you? Realistically,
instant death, probably.
exactly. But you wouldn't turn into a clown, would you?
Or
Like,
have you ever seen RoboCop?
Yeah, I mean,
The guy who falls in the toxic waste and his like fingers are like falling off. He's like,
yes, yeah. But the point is, you wouldn't turn into a clown, would you?
No, no.
So my point is, it's not realistic in that sense. And I think and the point is, it's like we said earlier about things that need to be heightened. It's okay that it's not realistic. That's fine, and that's what this universe is. And it can just be, you can have realism to it in the sense of his hair's falling out, he's this, he's that, and that's fine. But also have it like the smile. It doesn't come from a condition. It's like, no, the nerves got severed because of this. It's like, well, realistically, that wouldn't happen. It's like, yeah, but this is Batman. It's not supposed to just be realistic. And yeah, I think there's an element that could be drawn, and I think what we need to do realistically for the Joker is have different writers of the Joker with different ideas come together and build something, because we keep getting, like you said, the same thing, but I also get why we're getting similar things all the time.
Well, I think it's just because Heath Ledger's performance was so prolific that
Yeah,
everyone's
but
trying to chase
you know
after
what?
that
And
now.
I agree with that. I really do, and he is great. But also the fact that he died makes it so much bigger. Like Nirvana, they were like, to be fair, very different comparison because Heath Ledger was great, but Nirvana were okay. And the reason they are one of the top grunge bands is because Kurt Cobain killed himself. Like Alice in Chains was so much better. But point I'm making is like how that's why it's always gone back to. I think he was great, and I do not think his performance was made any better or people loved it anymore because he died. I think the legacy has lived longer because he died, though.
Yeah, no, yeah, definitely. I think that adds to it as well, especially because it was around the time that the film was coming out too. Kind of like with Brandon Lee as the Crow as well, sort of similar parallels there. We'll see. Like if they make more series, sure, but I want them to be very careful. I don't want them to run it into the ground. If they bring out loads,
this is done well.
Yeah, and well, for me, like this is probably one of my favorite series that I've ever seen. I thought it was flawless, pretty much. There is one flaw, which I'm going to get onto now with one of the other characters. Clancy Brown playing this character is not one of those flaws. Clancy Brown is fucking awesome. I think he's actually been involved in a lot of DC projects, certainly with a lot of the voice work in the animated films and whatnot. He's been around. He's played loads of characters in the DC various universes and whatnot. Plays Salvatore Maroni in this. Thought he was a great character. Clancy Brown's always had that intensity, whether he's the Kurgan in the Highlander, the guard, like the chief guard in the Shawshank Redemption. he's always had that menacing quality to him. And I like the feud that he has with the Penguin in this. The one part of the writing which I thought was very convenient and I didn't like, and I thought it was really anticlimactic, was the bit where he just randomly has a heart attack when he's fighting the Penguin. I might have to go back and watch this series. I don't remember them setting up that he had any kind of heart condition. Maybe there's a line somewhere where they talk about like his medication or whatnot, in which case, watching it again, I'd be like, okay, there's grounds for it. When I was watching it in the moment, I couldn't remember any of those moments. So it's like the dude just randomly has a heart attack when he's going toe to toe with Oswald.
I did think that as well. I thought it was a bit like, oh, okay, cool. So he's done. Like, I did think it was a little bit, one of those things of like, well, you've locked out there, really.
Yeah.
It was a bit, and that, okay, no, heightened is probably the wrong word, but like that makes it quite, when like people get into situations, like for instance, I mean, Kill Bill's a great movie, but where she goes up against like 100 people, and it's like, that's not realistic. It's that in the sense, well, not realistic, but in the sense of like the hero. Well, in this case, like obviously, like the main character, or whatever, has always got to be like, oh, they're going to get out in situations where that just wouldn't happen. It was quite like that, which was a bit, I know, yeah.
And then he also just manages to sneak out of Blackgate Prison as well.
Oh,
like he stabs a guard, but then he just walks out and he's in a safe house.
That. I thought, is there something I've missed here?
Yeah, he just gets out and he's in a safe house, and then Sophia finds him and just immediately knows where he is. So
I thought I missed something there. I was like, have I just like, I was like, have I missed what's gone on here? And I kept thinking, are they going to allude to something? That I was like, oh yeah, crap, I forgot you did that. And then I waited, and I was like, at the end of it, I was like, did that just happen how I thought it did? In the sense, did it make? But yeah, it was a bit weird.
What I did like though was how Penguin immediately, and we see this when he's convinced that he didn't kill his brothers, almost like he believes his own lie. The fact that he just adopts that, saying like, yeah, I killed Maroney, I just got him. He shoots him like a whole bunch of times after he's already dead, and he's like, yeah, I'm the one who beat you, I got you. And it's like, well, not really, it was a stalemate. That could have gone any way, that could have gone either way at that point. But I do like how he just instantly lies to everyone.
Be in a match, like, and the opponent would forfeit, and he'd be like, yeah, I won. And it's like, did you though?
No, and he believes his own lie. Like, he probably will still say that now, like, yeah, I'm the guy who got Maroney.
The thing I liked was when he shot him loads of times, because he had a heart attack, he died, and for ages he looked at him, and I was like, I was there thinking, I was like, please just shoot him, because if you don't, you know what happens in these situations. Then he did, and I was like, good, that makes a lot of sense. And the fact that he did, then when Victor kills that guy, he doesn't shoot him again. Seeing the the parallels between them, I thought was great. How one didn't care and just was like, well, I'm going to make sure he's dead. He's the kind of person, like I say, he wouldn't be in a fair fight. He would be very sort of, like I say, he'd take the forfeit. He'd be like, oh, I won. It's like, yeah, like, but the other one is he's new to this, and he's just, I love the parallels between them.
I like how he goaded Maroney as well in those final moments, how he says like the smell of burning hair, and when he's talking about murdering his wife and his son. That moment was fucking great, by the way, when he just like sets them on fire. I do wonder if they would have gone up that quickly, but it's a TV show.
I thought that, because I mean, he was doused in gasoline.
But he would, but maybe not her. Yeah, she was hugging him, but yeah.
Yeah, I thought that, because when it happened, I went, oh, is that? And then I was like, oh, she's gone up. I was like, okay. So yeah, it was quite quick, but no, I thought it looked great. It was amazing.
It was a great moment. Loved that.
I could have done with her screaming a bit more, but
she had like, I mean, I don't know if the actress has had like surgery or anything, so I'm gonna, she sounds like she's been smoking like 50 a day.
Yeah.
She had like a very gruff, like smoky voice, but maybe that's just her voice. Maybe that's just how her voice is. I think just overall with this show, I love that when you look at it as a whole, and as someone said earlier, like, I think it was a good idea to just review it as a complete product. it is just a tragedy, the whole thing. It's almost like a Shakespearean tragedy in that a lot of the characters kind of pay for their actions in some way or find themselves in their own personal sense of hell with like there's a cruel irony to everything that happens by the end of this, which I really appreciate. You have the mom who's always wanted to be in the top room of a penthouse over, with a view of the city in the wealthy elite, and see her son rise to the top, and she gets that, but not in the way that she wants it. You have Victor, who comes from the slums basically and wants to make a name for himself, and finds that father figure, and finally finds someone who sees the potential that this person has and can make a name for himself, and he's the sacrificial lamb by the end of it. You have Sophia Gigante, who finally breaks away from her abusive fucking family, dons a new name, really wants to protect the innocence. And is it her niece? I think it is, or someone that little girl in the family.
Niece, I think, yeah.
She does everything to protect her. Early on, she says, like, I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure she doesn't suffer the same fate that me as a little girl did in this family, and that she's treated with respect. And that is probably one of my favorite scenes, where she's in like child services or something, where she goes to, and the little girl's been self-harming, and she saw what Sophia did. She saw the gas mask when she gassed the family. And I didn't expect that moment, the bit where Sophia actually confesses to doing it as well. I thought she was going to lie and just, sweep it under the rug, which she initially does, I think, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, she does.
And that fucking horrible moment where through all of her actions, she has just completely fucked this girl up for life, completely beyond repair. And I like how that did really get to Sophia in that moment. So I think that's almost like the Lady Macbeth moment. That is the pivotal moment where Sophia almost regresses. That's the moment where she wants to break away from everything. She wants to move away. She wants to defer the family fortune to anyone else up for grabs. She doesn't care about the money or the family name or the wealth or anything. She just wants out of there, and she goes into that panic attack mode right afterwards, doesn't she? But that, that's a tragedy for the girl. And again, that cruel irony, Sophia ends up in her own personal hell once again in Arkham Asylum, the one place that she tried everything she could to break out. Very interesting what we haven't mentioned, though, possibly tying in for the Batman Part 2, the letter from Selina Kyle. It was about halfway through the series. It might have been episode 4, actually, when we had the flashback episode on Sophia, where it suddenly it clicked in my brain. I was just like, oh yeah, Selina was the daughter of Carmine. I was like, oh, that makes Selina and Sophia half sisters. I wasn't expecting the letter though at the end. I love how the Michael Giacchino music, the Catwoman theme from that previous movie, came back into it as well for that scene. And we don't know what's in the letter. Do the writers know what they have planned, or is that just their little something will happen? We don't know what it is.
Yeah, a letter is a way of going, there's a thing. We don't know what it is, but there's a thing happening.
I think Catwoman's going to be busting her out of Arkham Asylum.
It's like, I remember when at Kingdom Hearts 2, there was a letter at the end. We didn't know for years what was in it. And then we found out.
Nikki, we were like, wasn't it? That was right, yeah.
Yeah, and then we found out what was in it, and then it led to one of the worst games in the series. We were like, oh, cool.
Dream Drop Distance, is it, that one?
No, that one led to Coded.
Okay.
Yeah, which was a very it's one of those where it's kind of like this in the sense of, if you don't witness it, you ain't gonna miss loads, but like it's a bridge. Well, to be fair though, this isn't a bridge though. It's like in the sense of, it's a bridge for the Penguin, but I don't think at all you've missed anything really if you don't watch this. But I don't know.
We'll have to see what happens with the Batman too.
Yeah, that's the thing. But I really hope they don't keep, because this is the thing as well with like the letter is, you've got something that they're gonna, obviously is gonna be a big impact, but I don't think there's going to be anything that's going to be like, oh yeah, but she got it in the series. It's like, it's just going to be like, yeah, there was, her half sister was in prison, she got a letter. It's like, yeah, cool. That's all that really needs to happen. It's like, oh yeah, but if you watch the series, you actually see her go to prison, you see her get this. Like, oh, okay, cool. But whether you watch it or not doesn't really change anything. I really hope that's the route they go down.
Yeah, because Selena was leaving for Bloodhaven, wasn't she? That was literally the final scene of the Batman, where Batman and Catwoman go their separate ways. He's swore that oath to protect the city of Gotham. She's completely lost faith in the city of Gotham and leaves for Bloodhaven. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that plays out. One thing, I think that covers sort of most of the characters. I mean, there's a whole bunch of other characters that we could talk about as well. Very, very quickly, I just want to say performances across the board. The actors who played young Francis Cobb and young Oswald as well fucking nailed it. That kid who played young Penguin, I thought he was amazing. That performance there. So I guess that kind of rounds it. There's so much to say about these characters. My word. I mean, we could do like a 5-hour video dissecting every single infinitesimal thing about this. But I actually wanted to talk about, in many ways, another character, really, but like the city of Gotham itself. Because to me, when it's done well, Gotham is almost like a living, breathing character and is as much as part of the world as anything. This version of Gotham, and tying into it, the Batman that came out in 2022 is probably my favorite looking Gotham and feel to Gotham since the Tim Burton movies. Tim Burton probably has the edge for me, like that gothic look. But one thing I've always loved, and Arkham Origins did this, it's, aesthetically, Batman Returns is probably my favorite. Gotham always looks great in the winter. It really does. And towards the end of this show, when it gets to winter and you've got like the snowfall and everything, and everyone's like, and the Penguin dons the winter coat, I was like, this is so great. I love the look to this. And even more so in this one, this was still kind of present in the Batman, and even through the music as well. Music kind of plays a big part in this one. I love sort of like the 1940s 1930s, 1940s kind of
You can
vibe
go
that
as
this
far
one
as,
has.
like 30s, I'd say, yeah.
Yeah, because the animated series kind of has that. And I think when Gotham's done well, it's almost like a place lost out of time. You almost like don't know when it's set, which I love about it. People will have mobile phones and modern smartphones, but then there's like a big focus on jazz music and that kind of noir feel to everything, which feels very akin to, as we mentioned, like the 1930s.
Yeah.
You've got like the jazz bars and the sort of like bluesy influences coming through in the actual score and the music too, and the jazz focus. I think that's Gotham at its best, and this did it way more than the Batman, and I just love the look and the feel of everything in this.
Yeah, and when you see like Victor's family, it's very like 1980s New York poverty. Well, I say
Yeah,
poverty, but you know what I mean,
yeah.
like the whole I don't know what areas they're called, but like not poverty, but where like the dad has like two jobs, and like the mum works part time or whatever. Like, they've got like three kids. I think that's what they had as well. Didn't he have two siblings? I can't remember, but yeah.
I remember the
But
sister he had. Yeah, I don't remember. Yeah.
yeah, so but the point is, it was very like that, like I say, very 80s with that. With the cars, they're very sort of like, it could be like the 50s, it could be with the smartphones again, it's very modern, but then no, I think every single time they watch TV, it's always black and white as well, from what I
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a time it's
Oh,
not
they're
black.
watching like a lot of old timey musicals, and
Yeah.
there's that bit, "Put the blame on Maine boys," which crops up throughout. Is it Rita Hayworth? I think, isn't it, the actress from back in the day? That film they're watching, that musical. Is it? I don't know if it's Fred Astaire, young Oswald's watching sort of like the tap
Yeah, but
dancing
they all get shot and
musicals.
yeah.
Yeah. So I just love that, and it just really adds to this world. So it's like probably my second favorite looking Gotham after the Tim Burton ones. And it does feel like the Arkham game. Like, even just like looking at the wallpaper that I've got for this live stream, it looks like it's fresh out of like Arkham City or something, or Arkham Knight. So that they've nailed that aspect to it. There's some other aspects that I want to see them. Like, I hope we get more Alfred in the next one. I want to see more of that Bruce Wayne persona as well from Robert Pattinson, and I expect we'll get there. I think what they're going for is, if they are tied to a trilogy, they are going for like a character arc where Bruce and Batman will adapt across the whole arc.
Which which
Yeah.
series has got a fat Alfred?
A fat Alfred?
Because Alfred used to be fat many years ago.
Yeah.
But I swear there was a series where they've actually brought back Fat Alfred. I can't remember which one it was.
It wasn't that Caped Crusader show that came out recently, was it? With Oswalder Cobblepot.
Yes, it would have been. Yes, it was that.
Was it that
I
one?
feel like it was that. Yeah, and I watched 2 episodes and stopped because
Fuck that noise. Yeah, I don't need that in my life.
it could have been so. It had so much potential.
Yeah, and then I saw JJ Abrams' name attached to it. I was like, oh, well, this show's dead in the water. And turns out I was correct.
But they're still doing Harley Quinn, I think. I don't know. They're like 4 seasons in, so I need to continue watching that.
I never watched that, you know. I was like, maybe I should. Like
It's
a fun
great
little...
because it's just like not like what you'd expect.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know what I was going to get when I watched it, and I watched it, and I was like, this is not what I wanted. But like, not what I wanted. But like, it was because it was violent, and it was as violent as I wanted it to be. And then with the kind of comedy, I was like, okay, I can get on board with this because it was very violent as well. And I was like, that's all I wanted in Batman. I just wanted to see people get beaten up, and like, I was like, that's what I wanted, and it was funny, and they did it great. And then there's lesbians, and I was like, this is even better. It's amazing. So it was great. It was a great show.
There was another little side thing with this one as well, like the drug that they have, Bliss, which they say, I think, doesn't Sophia say that they found it was like a mushroom or a mold that they got from Arkham? And when they mentioned that, a drug from Arkham, I thought, oh, we doing fear toxin? But then I was like, that's probably not a drug that most people, a recreational drug that most people would want, because it just turned them fucking mad seeing their worst fears come to life. But
I do wonder if we'll get any reference to anything like that in the next movie.
My question to you is then, we kind of ruled the Joker show out, which I agree with you. If you could have the HBO Max treatment, 8 episodes, the same kind of maturity level, however you want to interpret the character, which villain, or just which character, it's probably going to be a villain though, would you want them to do a show on?
Well, if it was a movie, it'd be Scarecrow. I think he could go down a movie sort of route. I don't think TV show, but I would kind of like Hugo Strange. I would kind of like a TV show with him. I think he could be done. I think he'd be done very, very well. I think there could be a lot of really weird. And I don't. Maybe this isn't where the character does go, but I think of. Did you ever watch The Human Centipede?
I watched the first one. Yeah.
Yeah. So you know the Doctor in it.
Yeah.
I just feel like we could, maybe not to that extent, but like a doctor that's kind of like that, a weird sort of like, he's very respected, but and he is a doctor, he's this, he's that, but like there is a very dark twist somewhere. I think that we could do something with that, and I think Hugo Strange would probably be my top for that. I think Scarecrow, I'd say, for a movie. Because I think we could have some horror kind of thing going on, but I think save it for a movie. But I also think Hugo Strange, and I want a supporting Mad Hatter. Maybe not supporting, but maybe for like 2 episodes, something like that. And he's kind of like this weird, like he's kidnapped these girls, this kind of, like something that's really dark. And then this doctor that kind of then experiments on his mind, and then he ends up killing him. And then, I think incorporate some stuff like that. And I think it would be important to have another character like the Mad Hatter, because that's one thing missing from the Penguin. There was no other sort of like, all this character's included here or anything.
Yeah, I think, unfortunately, like when we went into the Batman, I was expecting this to be a heightened world, which it is more heightened, I would say, than the Nolan films to some respects, but people have been saying, oh, we want Mr. Freeze for the sequel, we want Clayface for the sequel. They ain't going to fit in this world. This ain't that kind of world. It ain't that comic booky. And if you did do the characters, they'd like whittle them down. We can't even call him Oswald Cobblepot, for fuck's sake. You ain't getting Clayface in this franchise. I'm sorry, it ain't going to happen. If they do, they're just going to completely nerf the character down to the point where it's like, well, why did you even pick Clayface in the first place? It's kind of like, I always question why Christopher Nolan picked Bane, because I'm like, you've basically, okay, you got the back break in there, great, but the character is nothing remotely linked to Bane at all. He's not, he's not in the luchador mask. He's not pumped full of venom. He grew up in a prison, I guess. That's a comparison, but the whole ramifications of everything, the ethnicity of the character, everything's totally different. So you have got to kind of rule out a whole bunch of villains, I think, and you got to keep them more street level. I would love
Professor Pig.
I was going to say, I don't know if Professor Pig could be like the main antagonist of the whole series. Maybe as just like this creepy serial killer, kind of character. Maybe like in a couple of episodes arc of something, he could be one that they're going after, but I don't know if he could be the main one. You mentioned the one that I would go for. I would love a Mad Hatter one, Jervis Tetch. I think, and even the Arkham games did this with the really, really fucking creepy interview tapes. Like when you listen to those, like either throughout the game or after the fact, the voice acting in some of those are fantastic and really unsettling and really unnerving. So a really cool adaptation of the Mad Hatter. It's a very difficult character to get right, I think, because he's the Mad Hatter from Alice in Wonderland, and having Batman fight that or go toe to toe with that is a very strange choice and very difficult to get right. But I think there's some juicy stuff there you could do for like a really dark adaptation. Scarecrow would be great as well. I would love to see that. Did you catch the reference in the final episode of the Penguin for teeing up who the villains might be for the next film? Did you clock it?
I don't know. There's not really I can proper think of. So
gonna try and find a picture and upload it. So if you want to talk more, I'm gonna see if I can find the picture and see if you jump to the same conclusion. All right, I've got the picture. Let me just save it.
Well, to be fair, I just don't think Scarecrow could hold up a TV show because there's too much going on for it. Like in a TV show, you've got a lot more going on. Whereas a movie is like one big thing. And I think the Scarecrow worked better in like a movie, personally. But I do think we need like a Scarecrow movie, something that's quite horror, like something that's. I think that would be good. But he could. No, I'm going to stick with mine. I want Hugo Strange, and then I want Mad Hatter as like a supporting kind of like for the first 2 episodes or something.
Right, I can't save the picture. I'm going to share my screen real quick, but right here, let me know if you can see that. These emblems in the back kind of look like owls in the courtroom. So a lot of people thinking it's setting up for Court of Owls for the sequel.
I never looked at that. I never saw that. But the thing is, like, is it though? Is it though?
It would be cool. I mean, it's like some kind of like creepy eyes wide shut kind of thing. Like, look at that.
Yeah, but is it though? Or is it just like they're always there?
Mm-hmm.
But I think the Court of Owls, I think the Court of Owls could be done really, really well. But the thing is, what you've got to be careful of is you wouldn't. Well, to be fair, you do it in a movie because in a TV show, it's very crime, underworld kind of thing, and we've had that with Penguin, and I know it's quite different, but it's still that underworld kind of thing going on. So we need to step away from that. So that's what you kind of got to be careful with. But I don't know. Yeah, Court of Owls hasn't really been utilized a lot, has it? That's the thing.
They're fairly modern, I think, as well, aren't they? In terms of Batman villains, I want to say. I think that would very much fit into the world. The whole this epic crime saga or whatever they're calling it for these films. I think it would be totally akin to those films. Part of me would love to see Hush as well, but I'm wondering if the character of Hush is going to be too similar to how they kind of adapted the Riddler. And if you've read the Hush comic book, then the Riddler, they may have already kind of shot their bolt with that one. I would be down for seeing the Court of Owls. I think I don't know if Average Joe moviegoer would be, and I don't know if Warner Brothers would be okay with that. Maybe, but then again, saying that, I think it was a bold choice for Batman Begins, like your big remake of Batman after 8 years absence after Batman and Robin. You come out with Ra's al Ghul and the Scarecrow. Like that alone, I thought.
Yeah,
like,
but that
the
was
League
back
of
when
Shadows,
that was back when movies would do things. Now it's like, oh, let's play it safe.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm thinking. We've got to have the Joker in there. We'll do the Riddler again. Actually, I don't mind them doing the Riddler again for the first Batman film. I thought that was definitely a villain that needed probably like a new
Mm.
makeover, perhaps, or a new take on it. Wasn't too keen on the costume, but still. But I think Court of Owls would be really good, especially when we see Oswald. He goes to the courtroom and he's schmoozing with city officials and whatnot, and he's saying, I want to be in the conversation. I want you to introduce me to these certain people, maybe speak to the mayor and whatnot. He wants to be this upstanding, important man of society in the whole political situation in Gotham. So I think that could tie in exceptionally well with the Court of Owls. Matt Reeves has also said about where we're going to find Batman in part two is that he's been dealing with everything that happened from the first movie, and that he blames himself for the flood and bringing everything on himself, that he's having a hard time being Batman. It goes a lot of ways that some superhero sequel films do, Spider-Man 2 being a good comparison to this, where they kind of have this crisis of, do I need to be Peter Parker or do I need to be Spider-Man? I might have to give up being Spider-Man to have the things that I want in life. Or so, yeah, I don't know if he's going to have a crisis of being Batman, which I don't know if I'd want that from this series. Let's just have him.
Yeah,
Let's
but
just have him be Batman.
he's supposed to just be very fixated on what he wants to do. I don't want a Batman going, "Oh, should I do?" No, just do it. That's
I
what he
mean,
wants.
Mask of the Phantasm kind of did that as well, where he has that crisis, but and then he kind of has that calling back to it again, doesn't he? Dark Knight Rises did it too, where Batman hasn't been seen for 8 years and he's really fucking miserable and he's literally broken and he has to kind of find his mojo again. But I don't want that for a sequel. It's like that's kind of one of my biggest. I know you haven't seen that. I don't think you've seen these ones actually, but the Daniel Craig James Bond films. You
I've
have
not seen
Casino Royale, which was his first one, which is kind of like an origin story. It's how he becomes 007 by the end of it. It's his first proper mission. And then, he's like, the name's Bond, James Bond, boom, credits. And it's like, fuck yeah, let's go. And then Quantum of Solace came out, which was during the writer's strike, and it basically repeats the same arc. It's like some really bad DLC stuck onto the end of Casino Royale. And it's like, okay, well, we'll forget about that one. Now we've got Skyfall, fuck yeah. And he's washed up and he doesn't want to be James Bond anymore, and he's fallen out of training and is an alcoholic and he has to get back in the swing of things again and he wants to retire. I'm like, no, this should be when we're like, right, let's go out on a fucking mission. We should be in the prime of his life at this point. And I don't want that for Batman. His second movie in, after he's so green and only been doing it for 2 years, I don't want the second movie to be him going, I don't want to be Batman anymore. I'm miserable. I want to quit this lifestyle.
Yeah.
No. I don't want. To me, Batman never fucking quits.
Yep.
He has sworn that oath to his parents, to himself, and the city. This is his one driving force. This is the one thing that keeps him going. And he will go down. He will fucking die on this hill if he has to. He ain't ever going to stop.
Yeah.
So I don't want that to happen. So
no, exactly. That's what I mean. I think he shouldn't go backwards. It should just always be, always going forward. Always sort of like he never gets properly broken.
Yeah, totally. Maybe like emotionally and like even physically in some parts as well. But it'd be very interesting to see where this all leads to. I think it's probably going to lead inevitably to the Joker maybe being the villain of the third movie. If you kept the Joker very much as that sort of Hannibal Lecter kind of character, how he was in that deleted scene where Batman goes to him for advice or to check in on certain things, I think that only takes you so far. I think it would be almost a disservice if you don't have a Joker go up against the Batman. He is like the main villain.
I mean, the thing is, the thing is, you could say the Joker could be a third movie, but if they have doubts whether the third movie will happen, will they put him in the second one just to be like, well, we need to get him out there?
I hope not. Because I want Court of Owls, Hush, whoever it happens to be. Like, I want to see some other villains maybe that we haven't seen before get the on-screen treatment. We will see him. I think he'll probably cameo in the second one. But yeah, if they are going to rush him in, I don't know. It's the fate of that third movie. Colin Farrell says that he signed up to do 3 Batman movies, and that's it so far. And I think he confirmed that he's got 4 to 5 scenes with Robert Pattinson. Oh, no, sorry. He's got 4 to 5 scenes in the sequel, in the Batman Part 2. The fate of that third one, though, it has been so many years since that other film. And the fact that now we're also going to have a competing DC universe and a competing Batman
I don't
universe
think
as
the
well.
third one will happen.
Yeah, I don't think Warner Brothers will want two separate live action Batmans on screen at once.
Also, what will happen is the second one, it'll be shot, it'll be done, it'll have a release date, and then it'll get cancelled.
Yeah, and Warner Brothers never learn. They always get to the, when they've got a good thing going, they never pursue it, or they're always so reactionary. They never know what to do. They've been utterly clueless all the way along. I hope it doesn't get shut down because, again, this show was really fucking good. And if the Batman 2 is good, I think it's just going to be a really missed opportunity not to just continue this saga while we've got it. But it might be that unfortunate movie that came out at the wrong, politically in the studio, what's going on with different reboots and whatnot. It just came out at the wrong time, maybe, which will be a shame if that happens. Then again, we had Matt Reeves as the Batman, but then we also had sort of the carryover from like the afterbirth of the Zack Snyder cinematic universe when we had the Flash, and you have Michael Keaton back, and then you had Ben Affleck being dragged back kicking and screaming to do more Batman
and then
scenes.
George Clooney back
at the same time. And then George Clooney was in there. So you did have a film with other Batmen in it other than Robert Pattinson. So it's not unheard of, I suppose, but if they're really going to want to push this new DCU, I think it's going to entirely depend on how well that Superman film does. Is it next year? I think that's meant to be coming out. So
you best wear underwear again, because
he's got the underwear. I was
going to say, I really hated when they took that away in Man of Steel.
I'm not too keen on the suit though. It looks. Have you seen the picture of him in the suit?
No, I haven't actually, because that's something I didn't know.
It's quite. I'll see if I can find a picture.
I steer clear of a lot of things at the moment because, like the first image of this or whatever, because things get cancelled. I get too hyped, and then I steer clear for ages. Also, especially when it's things I really, really like, because if I really like it, and I like the thing about trailers and images, all that kind of stuff, it's there to sell you a product, to sell the movie. If I already know, like, I'm gonna like this, I steer clear of it. So I'm like, well, I already know I'm gonna like it. I'd rather go in a bit more blind.
Yeah. I did want to see if I could get it though, because
I will look at a couple of things. I'm not just going to completely ignore it, but I don't watch as many things I used to, because as a kid it'd be like, there's a new trailer out for this, there's a new trailer out for this. But now it's like, if I know I'm going to like it, I just kind of go, okay, it comes out then. I'll see it when I see it. You know what I mean? I'll watch maybe one trailer, or I might watch a couple of bits, but I won't delve as much into it as I used to, because I know I like it.
I don't know why Google won't let me save certain images. Like, I'll click on one and it's just it saves it as like a web file. I'm probably going to have to share the screen again, aren't I, on this one, I guess. I'll send it you afterwards. Let me see if I can just download this one real quick. If this one doesn't work, I keep saving it as a web thing. That's annoying. But yeah, the costume just looks really bulky and baggy. Like, it doesn't fit the actor very well. So I don't know. We'll see. I want it to be good. I want to see a hopeful Superman, but James Gunn always seems to have that kind of like edgy, mean-spirited, angsty quality to him, and I don't know if that's the right fit for Superman. But we'll see. I think that's pretty much everything on the Penguin then. So I guess we'll just finish with like final thoughts on the Penguin. Would you recommend it as a show?
I would recommend a show. I have recommended a show to a lot of people. I'd recommend it to people that don't follow Batman. I'd recommend it to people that do follow Batman. I'd recommend it to anyone of all like walks, really, because I think it holds up well in any aspect. It doesn't have to be a Batman series. I mean, it's not really. It's not, and this is the thing, and this is why it's great. It's not cameo, but I could have done with one or two references, one or two things, even a character walking past, or even something small as like, how the Mad Hatter's like, because in Arkham City, like, he had his like hat shop or whatever, just something Like they walk past something and you go, oh, okay, cool. Or the doctor could have been called, Dr. Jonathan Crane. That's it. The smallest thing just could have done with one or two things here or there, but no more than realistically two, because then it becomes like, oh, what's going to happen next? And, what other one are we going to see? So just the smallest things. But aside, as I say, but even without them, like I say, it's still a great series. It's a great series for Batman fans. It's a great series for non-Batman fans. So I would recommend it to people, 100%. I'd probably give it like an 8 out of 10. I'd reckon 8.5. I probably push it to an 8.5. Yeah, I think there's a lot of it which the pacing's done right. The comic, the comedical level is done right. I think a lot of it is just done where you'd want it to be. The right amount of violence, the right amount of language in it as well, because they would swear where they swear, and then there's moments where there isn't a load of language for ages because it doesn't call for it. So I think the writing is done very well, the pacing's done well, everything is how you think that world would be.
Yeah, there was one reference I did see, and I actually can't remember if this was in the Batman or if it was just in this one. I think in episode 1 or episode 2, in the background, you see Burgess Jewelry Store. I thought, oh, okay, that's a nice reference to Burgess Meredith, from the '60s Batman.
You might, I haven't noticed it, but yeah.
But yeah, I can't remember if that was already in the Batman or if it was just in this one, but I did notice that one. But yeah, I kind of second that about it would have been nice to have seen more world building with some of these characters. But for me, this is a 10 out of 10 series. I actually can't remember the last time I've seen a show of this quality, from the acting, just the actors completely embodying those roles, understanding their characters, and just having the writing to back it up. It's so refreshing to see a show with almost just complete pinpoint accuracy writing on all accounts. I mentioned that there's some stuff with like Maroney, which I thought was a bit convenient, but I'm willing to forgive it. I want to say thank you to Lauren LaFranc as well, the showrunner, who I thought did an absolute masterful job with the vision of this. And Matt Reeves, I guess, was tied in, but I think this is all Lauren LaFranc. The various directors, the writers, the performers. This was an absolute pleasure to watch. Completely caught me off guard. I never thought that a Penguin spin-off series to the Batman would have any right to be this good. In many ways, this has kind of made me a little bit more critical of the previous movie and perhaps cautiously optimistic for the next film. I hope they maintain the same quality. If they don't maintain the same quality, this isn't going to take away from this series for me. I think this is outstanding, a fantastic character piece, a great almost origin story for the Penguin, and just the strength of the writing and the characters that make up the whole criminal underworld of Gotham. This was an absolute powerhouse of a show for me, and I'd rank this alongside Daredevil Series 1 on Netflix as one of the best comic book adaptations of a character I've ever seen. Might not be as accurate to some of the comic book stuff, but in terms of a vision, and realizing that, it was amazing. When I got to the finale, and I was like, the finale of this series is two characters, a mother and a son, sat opposite each other in a chair with Sophia Gigante sort of mediating the two. And I was like, this is our finale, but you're hanging on every word, on every performance. I was like, we don't need massive explosions left, right, and center. We don't need a city getting flooded. This is the real crux character and the stakes. Yeah, it's fucking perfection as far as I'm concerned. This is a 10 out of 10 series for me. And I'm still mulling it over now and thinking about it. I probably will go back to the series at some point. Probably going to have a break, though. Someone mentioned earlier, if I can find the comment, has probably already checked out by now, actually. Bath Time says, what other shows you got coming up, Chris? That's a very good question, actually. So I'm kind of TV'd out at the moment. So between this and Cobra Kai Season 6 Part 2 was out, which I did my review for last night, so you can check that out. I really don't have any other TV shows lined up for the foreseeable. Maybe this is a good opportunity to go back to one that I've missed. I'm actually not sure what TV shows are coming out soon. So it's for the channel. It's really just, we've got a Disney review tomorrow. We've got our review for Big Hero 6, which I watched earlier in preparation. And then I'll probably be live with Everything at Middle Earth at some point. I think there's going to be a new trailer coming out for The Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim, probably within the next couple of days, actually. So I'm probably going to be going live for that. But yeah, what else is coming out at the cinema? What have I got booked?
Yeah. Didn't you go the other day? Or you're going?
I was meant to be going today to see The Wild Robot. I've moved my booking to tomorrow, so I'm seeing that at 12:20, based on everyone's recommendation. So, yeah, I haven't got tickets to see
I heard
Gladiator 2.
Transformers is okay.
Transformers 1? Oh.
Yeah. I heard it was okay. I still don't plan to watch it at all.
No.
I heard it was okay.
Same. I think I need to hear from a few more people that it's incredible, a masterpiece, and then maybe I'll check it out. I haven't got tickets for Gladiator 2. I do have my tickets booked for The Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim. So I'm going to be seeing it. I think it's released on Friday the 13th, unlucky for some, probably unlucky for me, in December. But I'll be seeing that on the Saturday, so I'll probably have a review for that 14th of December. But yeah, it's kind of just... well, I guess now that we're getting towards the end of the year, it's going to be the push towards Oscar season. I don't know if I'm going to be watching the Oscars this year. I didn't watch them last year. But I do try and watch every film that's nominated for Best Picture. So, yeah, December into January, I'll be watching a lot of movies. But, yeah, we'll be live with stuff when it takes our fancy. But
Wicked comes out soon.
Oh, it does.
It does. It's going to be great.
Oh, I mean, if we're talking like Wizard of Oz, can we like review the original or this absolute work of horror, Return to Oz?
Is that the one with the pumpkin?
Yes.
Yeah, that's great.
It's incredible. Absolute nightmare fuel, but really, really fucking good film. I'd rather watch that than Wicked.
No, Ariana Grande on screen for. I'm happy for 2 hours. It's a good time.
Oh, it's fine. I had Sophia Falcone for 8 hours, and I was a happy man.
Yeah, you forget how long series can be because they can delve so much deeper into things.
All the memes I've seen for the Penguins so far have been just pictures of Sophia Falcone, like I can change her, or like I'd fight Batman for her. Or she doesn't need fixing. She's perfect in every way. She doesn't need fixing for me.
She doesn't need fixing. She could kill you in your sleep. Well, she wouldn't do it in your sleep, but you know.
I'm cool with that. God, I have issues, don't I? Don't we all? Anyway, let's round it off there. So thank you for everyone who tuned in, commented along. Hope you all enjoyed the Penguin. If you are discovering this after the fact, or maybe you tuned out midway through when we started talking about spoilers, let us know your thoughts on the Penguin and your hopes and speculations for the Batman Part 2 if you're interested. Please do consider subscribing to the channel as well for more movie reviews, discussions, and live streams. As mentioned, we're going to be live again tomorrow night at 8 p.m, continuing our Disney animated classics retrospective with number 53, which is Big Hero 6. So once again, a big thank you, and we'll see you guys in the next stream. Take care, everyone.